This was definitely not the fight that we expected. Thiago Santos beats Johnny Walker by a decision, 48-47 on all scorecards, and that's exactly how it should have been. Even though it was a close fight, it was kind of clear that Santos won the second, fourth, and fifth rounds, whereas Johnny Walker won the first and the third, mostly due to volume instead of any kind of big damage. He did land one good right hook after a body kick in the fight, but for the majority of it, he was just feinting. A lot of volume, a lot of activity without actually touching Santos, if you know what I mean. Just a lot of movements instead of actual strikes to make anything count. And even off of his feints, he wasn't capitalizing on them. He would get huge reactions out of Thiago Santos, but never capitalized on those. He never made those reads. And we probably got spoiled with Alexander Volkanovski last week because he does the exact opposite. Shows to be an extremely intelligent fighter who feints on you and then capitalizes right afterward. Johnny Walker, on the other hand, was just feinting and let it go. Now, on one hand, it is Johnny Walker's fault for letting the fight get away, and more importantly, listening to his corner too much. In his corner was John Kavanaugh, who is Conor McGregor's coach, and he was giving Johnny Walker the exact instructions that he was fighting on. Walker was doing exactly what Kavanaugh was telling him. He was just feinting, he was throwing front kicks, some leg kicks, and that's really it. He was trying to back up Santos for most of the fight, but there was never any urgency, especially when it came to the fifth round, where it seems like each fighter won 2 rounds, so whoever won the fifth would win the fight. And John Kavanaugh was making it seem like Walker was winning the fight. He told him to keep doing the same thing, and he was doing very well after the 4th round, in which he lost. No urgency going into the 5th round, and Johnny Walker needed the urgency. There was no caution in the corner, and that is not a good thing, man. And the fact that Johnny Walker listened to his corner so well tells you how coachable he is. He listens to the corner word for word and does exactly as they tell him. That's a quality a lot of fighters don't have about themselves. Walker fought the exact way Kavanaugh was telling him for 5 rounds and never deviated away from the game plan. Imagine the day this guy gets the perfect coach for him, who tells him how to fight correctly the entire way through. He is a machine that the coaches can control in a fight. Imagine if he had that mastermind behind him. And not only that, Johnny Walker is a physical specimen. Any coach would be happy to have this guy in their gym. And that just tells you, man, there's a lot of guys who are going to be looking at Walker and want him in there, even though he doesn't necessarily need them. Maybe this does work out with John Kavanaugh later. Maybe they do make it a sort of adjustment and turn this guy into a world beater. I hope that's the case. Thiago Santos is a natural counterpuncher, so he's not a guy that we know goes forward all the time. It depends on the fight. If he gets into a wild brawl like he did against Jimmy Manuwa, then that version of Thiago Santos is going to come out. But when he's facing the top echelon of this division, the Jan Blachowicz, the John Jones, the Glover Teixeiras, etc., Thiago Santos acts a lot more as a counterpuncher instead. So he's waiting on Walker to expose himself. And that's what ultimately caused this sort of chess match in a way. Now, Johnny Walker was not exposing himself that much, but at the same time, he wasn't winning the fight. So he needed to do something a little bit different. John Kavanaugh was telling Johnny Walker to just keep feinting, back up Thiago Santos, throw front kicks, some leg kicks, and he was saying that Johnny Walker was winning the fight. This is not the first time we saw this with John Kavanaugh. He's done the same thing with Conor McGregor. After Conor would lose rounds, Kavanaugh would be in the corner and say, "You're performing perfectly, you're doing very well." For an example, when Conor fought Khabib, where Conor was getting absolutely dominated, even had 10-8 rounds against him, in the corner, no urgency. It was just John Kavanaugh telling him, "You're doing great," when he was not doing great. Even in the 3rd round that Conor beat Khabib in, he was still not doing great. After the Dustin Poirier fight, he said that Conor was doing well there too. And I'm like, what is going on here? There's either 2 things going on with Kavanaugh, in my opinion. Number 1, he's not really seeing the fight and he's being too optimistic on his fighter instead of being realistic. Or, what a lot of people are saying, he's just being too much of a yes man to his fighters. I really don't know what it is, but there's a possibility that Kavanaugh potentially ruined Johnny Walker. There's another argument that if Walker fought his usual style, he'd probably get himself knocked out in this fight. That could be true. But what else can be true is he could have caught Thiago Santos, especially in that 5th round. In that 5th round, Johnny Walker needed to be his old self. We didn't need this one that was feinting the whole fight. And at the same time, telling Johnny Walker to keep feinting, showing him no urgency, not to explode or anything, ultimately takes away the most unique thing about Johnny Walker: his finishing ability, his aggression, his offense, his creativity. In a way, it seems like John Kavanaugh has stripped away the most effective and most unique thing about Johnny Walker and ultimately made him a feinting machine out there. He's not doing anything besides just feinting at the opponent, and it only works so much against Thiago Santos because Santos is that counterpuncher. You can feint on him all day and Santos just going to keep looking for the big counter shot, and ultimately because of that style, Walker can land some leg kicks and win a round through that. He's also much longer than most of his opponents. But if he goes and fights other fighters, he fights Jiri Prochazka like that, this is not going to work at all. Prochazka is going to take the fight to him, and Walker is not going to be able to be that composed guy on the back foot, feinting and throwing kicks and stuff. Or if he goes and fights even Dominic Reyes. This approach is not going to work against certain fighters. It really is only going to work on shorter counter strikers, and that is not what we want to see from Johnny Walker. Now, playing devil's advocate, we can just say that maybe Johnny Walker fought this way specifically for this fight alone. Maybe this was Kavanaugh's game plan only against Thiago Santos, but against other fighters, he would fight completely different. He'd be more aggressive in certain fights, whatever it is. I can see that as well, but the main thing as to why I doubt it's like that is because of the lack of urgency and the lack of change between the 4th and 5th rounds when Walker needed to change. I know he's been having a hard time of finding a coach that can take him to that next level, but man, I do hope he finds that guy. There's a lot of different kind of coaches that focus on different kind of things out there that would absolutely help a guy like Johnny Walker. Henry Hooft, I think, would be an amazing coach for him. Him going to American Top Team would be great for him. I don't think going to these methodical, slower paced guys is a good fit for Walker.